Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Follow-Up. My name is Nathan Lynn. I am the technical director here at Calvary Christian Church, and I'm joined by my very good friend, James Teutschmann. James,
hey, everyone.
Hello. How are you
friend.
doing?
I'm doing great today.
Yeah,
Feeling good.
And again, you might be noticing, guys, that we, once again, are not Scott Beckenhauer, but that's actually for a really cool, I wish, right? That's actually for a really cool reason this week. So this past Sunday was our Impact Sunday, one of our Impact Sundays that we have a couple times throughout the year. And so we got to spend that time with James Teutschmann, who is our missions and outreach pastor, which is obviously a very well-designed Sunday, if you ask me, that we got to hear about the impact that Calvary has been making. And not just that, but also kind of what that means from a biblical standpoint. We got to hear about that from James this weekend. So you preached your sermon. How'd you think it went?
Yeah, I think it went well. It's kind of, as I was kind of preparing for it, I really wanted to mainly talk about the promise that God made to Abraham, that all people would be blessed through him, how that was fulfilled through Jesus, and how we're invited to be a part of that. But then I was like, well, if I'm starting there, I probably need to, what if people don't know who Abraham is? I probably need to back up and talk about why this is important. So then I kind of just settled on really the whole theme of the Bible is pointing us of back, reconciling everything back to perfection, getting back to the garden. And so that's the role of the local church, is to help its community get back to the garden.
That's awesome.
And so that's really kind of what we talked about today.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, sometimes our Impact Sundays might look a little different. Sometimes we spend that time talking about the actual physical, literal impact that Calvary is making. But I thought it was really interesting because you kind of started out from the beginning saying, that's not really what we're going to talk about today. We're going to hit on that a little bit maybe, but you took a really, really awesome and biblical approach. And yeah, like you said, you started out, and it was interesting because you said, so this all makes sense. Why don't I just go ahead and quickly summarize the whole Bible for you, which I thought was really, really funny. And yeah, you got to start with that early segment in Genesis where he's talking about, he's saying to Abram, right, if you leave your home and you go over here, I'm going to bless you and I will continue to bless others through you. And like you just said there, all families on earth will be blessed through that family, talking to Abraham and what that means for us going on. And so as you continue to work your way through that, what exactly were you thinking in terms of how that blessing and how that story that we read about through Abraham, how that played out into the church of today? Because you connected those really well.
Yeah. So basically, if we believe the end of that says all families on earth will be blessed through this family, the whole story of the Bible, that's basically the thesis statement of the Bible. And it's basically saying, okay, you can read the rest of the Bible and it's going to be showing how this is true. God is going to uphold his promises and his end of the covenant. And spoiler alert, he upholds both ends of the covenant and makes that happen. And so how that ends up, we kind of get into what the local church looks like, is that's what we're called. We are now invited to be a part of being that blessing to all people everywhere. And so that blessing originally came through the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, but now we are invited to help be a part of that and help start bringing pockets of heaven on earth like Jesus did. So I talked about that for just a second of everywhere Jesus went, we saw heaven meeting earth. And that's and then Jesus says, go and do the same thing. You've seen how I do this, go and do it. And that to kind of make it a really personal thing. But as we are communities of people that follow Jesus, we are all invited into that. We're invited to do that. And that's kind of that's the command, is to go and make disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. But then also that's what we are helping make heaven on earth happen now. And that's the real tangible impact that our church is supposed to have in our community.
Yeah, that's great. And a little later on, you started to kind of ramp into and get a little bit more specific with Calvary as a whole. And you hit on one of the verses out of the book of Matthew, right? In the Gospel of Matthew, a few chapters in, it reads, Matthew chapter 5, 14 through 16, I think it says, you are the light of the world, like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your good deeds shine out for all those to see, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father. And you basically, this is a pretty famous verse. This is another one that's pretty well known. And it's cool because it's taking this really beautiful metaphor and kind of putting it into perspective of what the church is supposed to be, right? It's saying, there's this thing that exists for a purpose, a light. It's giving the example of a light. No one makes a light and then covers it so it can't be seen. In the same way, churches, you are called to be here and to not cover yourself, to not let yourself disappear, but to be standing out and doing something about that, right? Yeah. And I think that's so cool. And then from there, you took a few minutes, James, to actually hit on a little bit of what Calvary is doing specifically with our outreach, with our impact, and kind of exactly what it looks like here. You said something before we started recording that I thought was really, really interesting. Almost the why why of why we plant churches.
Yeah.
So can you hit on those two things, maybe some of the specifics, because I thought some of them were really, really great.
For sure,
and interesting for people to know of what we are doing, and then also the why behind some of those things. I thought that was great.
Yeah. So the why, like if we look at that verse and talk about how that we are supposed to be a light on a hill in a valley of darkness, I just think of the insane amount of gaps that can exist in people's lives. Of like, there's different relationship strife. There's like different financial issues. There's like things that maybe we've done in the past and we feel like God's mad at us for, right? There's all these different areas, and you could just like list off things forever and ever of the ways that we feel like we are far from God, or we just feel like things aren't the way they're supposed to be. And so when we are able to be a light on a hill, that's refreshing to ourselves. It's refreshing to the people around us. And we were called to impact the people that are in our everyday life. And here at Calvary, we talk a lot about like one life culture and having a one life of one person that God's placed in our path for us to like uniquely serve and get to know. But some of the things that we like are tangibly doing to kind of make these things happen, help bring light to where there's darkness and the place to be, like a city on a hill. Some of the things that we do is like through feeding people through the pantry. We are able to do that through offering counseling to people. We help do financial literacy because we know that's like the number one issue in families. That's like the number one cause of divorce is like financial struggle. And that's why we'll continue to do things through Care Portal of like donating washers and dryers and beds and everything to help keep families together. That's like kind of why we continue to do any of the things that we do, even into small groups and kids and student ministry, is to help people know who God is and what God has done for them and call them into help take them back to the garden, back to the space where God intended us to be. And really the story of the Bible is us getting back to right relationships with people and right relationships with God. And so as the local church, that's why we do it, is because that's what God has done for us. And God has told us to go and help bring that to other people, go do that for other people. And so that's what we get the opportunity to do. And that's why I love talking about outreach. That's why I love doing outreach. I think that's just like a big passion of mine because I see it so clearly in the whole story of the Bible.
Yeah, for sure. And it was cool. We had a video there kind of in the middle of your sermon that was from one of the church plants that we have been a part of, right? A lot of people would have recognized Jason Epperson. He was on staff here for a little while and he comes back and does teaching a lot, but we got to watch a video of him kind of walking through what it looked like for him to go through his church plant, right? And what CU Church in Illinois, I think is right, has been doing there. And he ended his kind of story with a really interesting thought about what he hopes would happen if CU Church was just to all of a sudden disappear, right? He said, I hope it leaves a hole. I hope something's missing, right? If CU Church were to disappear overnight.
Yeah, and I think that's super incredible because that's a really good imagery. Not alone, like, yes, it's like the physical church, like the things that the church does. Maybe for us it'd be the food pantry and all those things, but also the people, like the way that you go and work. You're in neighborhoods, you're in communities, you're in friend groups, you're in all these different areas. And like, would the Omaha metro area feel the difference if everyone that called Calvary home just disappeared? Like, would they feel the tension of that? And would they understand, like, yeah, there's something different about this. Like, that's what it looks like to be a light on a hill, is, in a dark room, if a light is there and then is gone, you feel the difference. And that's, I think, what Jason was getting at. And I love that. Jason said we want to be an agent of transformation of a city. And I think we want to be like the forefront of anything phenomenal happening for people in our community. We want that to like, oh yeah, that stems from the church.
Yeah, that's great. You kind of summed up some of your points there by just kind of wrapping up almost all of what you said in this perfect little package with a bow on it, where you said the local church was made to impact its community. You, talking to the congregation, talking to everyone watching through their screens, were made to impact your community, right? That is our calling. And the way you just phrased it was really, really cool. The local church is made to impact its community. Calvary is made to impact Bellevue and Papillion and the community that we are in. And the reason we partake in church planting everywhere else is because that local church is then responsible for impacting their community, right? It's this beautiful web that starts to grow and starts to expand from where we have the opportunity to partake in it here, which is so
it feels
cool.
like a never-ending task if we were like, we have to put a Calvary Christian Church on every corner.
Yeah.
Like, that is like a never... It's always never ending, but that's like, man, that is so big of a task. It's like, it's easy to get discouraged. Yeah. And the goal is really just to impact your community where you're at. Yeah. And that's why we want to plant churches, is because we want to see more transformational communities happening. Yeah. We want more people living intentionally, caring about that local community. And man, if we really like leaned into that, like if every church in America specifically was like, this is what we were like born to do, is to like positively impact our community, then like I think we just see the reliance on the other things in the world just start to like fade away.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, I can impact my community. I can impact my community through voting, but that's like once every 4 years.
Yeah.
So am I really putting all my eggs in that one basket, in that 5 minute, the thing where I can make an impact? Or am I doing like the day in, day out of caring for the people around me and working together with my church to reach one life at a time?
Yeah, that's so good. That's awesome. And then you kind of wrapped up your whole sermon by inviting everyone to partake in this, right? To do something about it almost. You said something cool, or you wrote it in your notes at least, that like a church of our size, we've been blessed to be here. If people think that we can't make a difference, like they're probably wrong, right? Like
it's almost like we're kind of fooling ourselves, right? It's kind of like looking at the task ahead of you and be like, I can't do that. It's like, you're right. James cannot do that. But James, with 1,600 people living intentionally in our communities, can have a profound impact in the way that people just see the need for like caring for each other. Like we can shift the culture of our community, and to think that we are powerless to do that is like, we're only kidding ourselves and really not giving the Holy Spirit the credit it deserves.
That's awesome. And what are some tangible ways, James, that someone can do that, can do something about it, can partake in that? Maybe both inside of Calvary and outside of that. If you
so it's any of those things that we mentioned earlier, whether it's like getting in a small group, sharpen yourself so that you know what it looks like to help people get to the new creation or bring them back to the creation, or like you can like participate in any one of the things, serving, helping create a better space for people. Like on Sunday morning, like that's what it's about, is like, it's not about the Sunday morning, but it's about helping people get to know, like be introduced to who Jesus is. And then outside of Calvary, I think one of the ways that sometimes we miss the point about what the Bible is trying to tell us is like the other 6 days of the week are just as important as a Sunday. Having an intentional conversations with the people around you and the people that maybe you meet in different places and spaces, like that's just as important as like anything that you could do throughout the week. It's just as important as coming to a Sunday morning. So find the people in your life, find the one life like that you are directly connected to, and find out how you can impact them. How can you help connect them back into a right relationship with God and a right relationship with other people? How can you encourage them and serve them? What is it looking like? How are you pursuing caring for them?
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's great. I think that those are some really achievable next steps that everyone can take. And so, James, your sermon was awesome. I was super proud of you, and it was really great to watch you explain that impact and really just bring a great message to everyone. I thought that was awesome. So, church, if you missed the sermon, it is available on our YouTube or on Calvary.ch. You can check it out there. So make sure you watch it if you miss it. Over the next couple weeks, we'll be starting a new sermon series next week. But also in this next upcoming week, we have VBS, right, which is really
oh
exciting.
My goodness,
so
yeah.
We're excited. The whole church kind of buckles down and prepares itself to serve these kids in a really exciting way as the summer kind of kicks off. So we'll be in full VBS mode. I know both of you and I are going to be serving there, and we're just really excited. But we have that going on over the next couple weeks. Like I said, we're starting a new sermon series, so make sure you check it out at any of our campuses or online at live.calvary.ch. We're just excited for the summer of 2021, I guess.
Yeah, we got the summer tour and all this stuff. There's tons of stuff happening.
There's always something happening. So make sure that you're catching what you can, and we'll hopefully see you in some of our buildings on the weekend. But make sure you check out the sermon next week, and we'll check it out in the follow-up as well.